else. Co-owner of Day Trade Smart, and as Ashley mentioned, founder of the Mastermind and the Alerts. So let's get into it. And first thing we want to do is we want to, and again, I already talked about this, how I did this: proper money management, proper exit method, and our indicators. And you'll understand why these three things lend to my success as aggressively as they did. And my hope is that they will do the same for you. So let's debunk a few things first. This is where I want you guys to ask questions, but I'm also going to ask questions and I expect responses. I like talking, but I like dialogue as well, right? All right. So more pips equals more profit.
Maybe.
What is worth more, 100 pips or 10 pips?
Yes.
What's that?
Yes. It depends. Yeah,
That's the right answer. It depends, right? Well, what does it depend on, right? And that's what we're going to talk about today. So more pips equals more profit. It depends, right? So let's use the first example. Let's say we have a $10,000 account, right? And we've taken 10 trades. We're just using these numbers because they're round numbers and they're easy to do the math by, so that everyone can keep up and not have to feel like they need a calculator to do it. Now we have a 70% win rate. That's going to be the parameters for both of these trade 1 and trade 2 examples. Okay. So we're gonna implement a risk reward. We're not going to talk about how we figured these out on these examples, but we're going to talk about in a little bit. That's going to be the topic, is how we figure out these numbers. What should your risk reward be? What should your risk percentage be based on your win rate? How do you figure these things out? Those are the questions that I want to answer today for you. Okay. So first, risk reward. We're going to use a 2-to-1. Now it's called risk reward. So the 2 is what? Risk. And the 1 is reward. Okay, risk percentage, 1%. That means that we're going to risk 1% of our $10,000 account here. Our second trade is a 2-to-1. Risk percentage is 1%, and the goal is 10 pips, where the trade 1, the goal is 100 pips, right? So 2-to-1, if I'm going for 100 pips, what's my stop loss? 200 pips. If I'm going on trade 2, if I'm going for 10 pips, what's my stop loss? Yep. 20 pips, right? All right, so here's our first trade. Risk reward, 200 and 100. Risk percentage, 1%. Now, if I'm going to allow my account to draw down 1%, 30% of the time, right, because I'm winning 70% on this trade, 30% of the time, I'm going to stop it out at 1%, right, which I'm allowing the market to go 200 pips in order to do, right? So at 200 pips, what is my lot size that would equal 1% at 200 pips? And that's a 0.05 lot size, which is 50 cents per pip. Okay? Then I can allow for it to go 200 pips if it does. And then, after it goes back in my favor, it goes 100 pips. And then I get 100 pips, 50 cents each, right? So here's how it breaks down. How many trades did I win if I'm at a 70% win rate and I took 10 trades? 7 of them. How many pips am I going for? 100. So what's 7 winning trades times 100 pips? 700. Now how many losers do I have? 3. And what's my stop loss? 200. So 3 losing trades, 200 pip stop loss. I have a negative 600. Right? Did I make profit? Yeah, 100 pips. Yep. Net pips is 100 pips. Right? Now how much is that worth if I'm trading at 50 cents a pip? $50, right? So I made $50 on 100 pips. Okay, let's go to our next example. Trade 2. 20 and 10, risk percentage is 1%. Same risk percentage, right? But here we're only going for 10, so our stop loss is 20. All right, so at 1% of a $10,000 account, that's still $100, right? Okay, so if I'm going 20 pips and risking $100, what lot size can I use that would equal $100 at 20 pips? 0.5, right? Because that's $5 a pip, right? So $5 per pip, 20 times is $100, right? Okay, so I have 7 winners, 10 pips each. I make 70 pips. Then I have 3 losers at 20 pips each, and I have 60 pip loss. right? For a net pip of 10 for those trades. Now, I have 10 walk-away pips. What's the lot size that I used? $5, right? 0.5 lot size. What's 5 times 10? 50. All right? So here's your side-by-side. How many did we go for in trade 1? 100 pips. How many did we go for in trade 2? 10 pips, right? Okay. What's our profit? Same thing. All right? So does more pips equal more profit? It depends, right? Now, let's say that this was the scenario. You have one setup that you could take 100 pips on 70% of the time and make $50 profit. That's great, right? There's nothing wrong with that. Matter of fact, if that's what your risk appetite is, if that's where your trade strategy revolves, if that's what your personality is more accustomed to, place the trade, let it just run, and then take the profit later. If that fits you, then you should do that. You understand? You want to take trading and form fit it to you. You don't want to try to form fit yourself to trading, to have whatever approach you want to take, right? But what's important about identifying that is there's all these, it's almost like when you fish, you always notice that the lures are shiny and, right? That's kind of how it is. There's a whole lot of people out there. You go to YouTube and they've got all these shiny lures and they're like, I got 500 pips, right? And it's like, well, that's great, but you're trading at a penny a pip, so congratulations, right? But here's the other thing you want to consider when you're considering, is it your risk appetite? Is it your personality? Does it meet your goals, right? How many times in a day do you think you can take a 100 pip trade?
Once, maybe.
Maybe. How many times let's say a week, you can take a 100 pip trade?
Couple if you're awake at the right time.
Maybe 1 or 2? Okay. How many times in a week can you take 10 pips? Yeah, once, twice a day, right? Okay. So if all was equal, which one's worth more? 10 pips is worth more, right? Now, if your risk to reward, and we'll get to this, if your risk to reward was different, right, and you had a 20 pip drawdown on that 100 pip trade, and you were using the same lot size as you were using on the 10 pip trade, because 20 pips is still, with a 0.5 lot size is still $100, but then you're able to get 100 pips 70% of the time, well, then that's $500, right? So that's going to be worth more. So again, it depends. By the way, it's not very easy to do, right? 20 pip drawdown, 100 pip take profit, right? I mean, if it was easy or simple, well, everybody would be doing it, and we wouldn't be having this conversation, right? Okay, so just some things to consider, but we're gonna dive deeper into this. All right. So next thing is, and of course it depends. I don't know why this thing is coming up weird, but okay. The next one that we're gonna debunk: higher win rate equals more profit, right? So what's worth more, a 90% win rate or a 70% win rate? Look at that. You guys already know the answers. This is incredible, right? I already taught them. You see that, Troy? That's right. That's the power of PowerPoint. They already know the answer. I'm just playing, man. I'm kidding. All right. So here's our examples. Let's say we have that same $10,000 account. We've taken 10 trades. Okay. So trade 1 parameters, 90% win rate. Now we're going to max this out. Risk to reward of 5-to-1. That you can use a 5-to-1 with a 90% win rate. So if I'm using a 5-to-1 and I have, let's say, a 10 pip take profit, what's my stop loss? 50 pips, right? Okay. So my risk percentage is 2%, and later we'll understand why we can use a higher risk percentage with a higher win rate, as long as your risk to reward makes sense, obviously. But so we'll talk about that later. But my risk percentage is higher here; it's 2%, and my goal is 10 pips. Now the parameters on my second trade is 70 pips, or rather, 70% win rate, and I'm using a 1-to-1 ratio. So if I'm going for 10 pips, what's my stop loss? 10, right? 1-to-1. Okay. So and I'm going to use a 1% risk percentage, and later we'll talk about why that's relevant, why I would only use a 1% there and a 2% on a 90. And then my goal here is 10 pips as well. So everything is almost the same. Win rate is different, One of them's 90, one of them's 70. Risk to reward's different. One of them's 5-to-1, the other one's 1-to-1. And the risk percentage is different. 90% risk percentage, or 90% has a 2% risk percentage. And the trade 2, which is 70%, only has a 1% risk percentage. Mind you, let's look at risk percentage as risk to reward for just a moment. If I'm risking 2% and it's a 2-to-1 ratio, what am I hoping to make? Which is 1%, right? So a 2% risk is not always riskier, right? That depends on your win rate. I'm just going to let that resonate because we're going to pick back up on that later. But you're also making more when your trade wins, right? So if 90% of the time I make 1% and 10% of the time I lose 2%, that's a good risk to reward ratio, right? Okay. And later remind me, but I'm going to tell you guys how that plays into making sure that every time you're up for additional funding in your corporate account, you're going to get it. So I'm going to bring that back as well. All right, so let's look at our examples. So our first example, our trade 1. We have a 90% win rate, a 5-to-1 ratio. Our risk percentage is 2%. That means that if I'm going to let this trade go as far as 50 pips and then I'm going to stop the bleeding, and that's going to be worth 2%. What's 2% of a $10,000 account? $200. Okay, $200. So at 50 pips, what lot size would I use that would equal $200 at 50 pips? 0.4, which is $4 per pip. So 4 times 50 equals 200, right? 50, 100, 50, 200. Okay. So if I'm trading at a 0.4 lot size and I take 10 trades, right? Trades taken, I took 10 trades. 9 of them I won, right? And how many pips was I going for? 10. So I won 90 pips, right? Now, how many losers do I have? 1. All right. Don't be afraid to speak. And what did I lose in that one loser? How many? 50 pips. So what am I left with? 40. Now, if I took $4 and times it by 40, my number is $160, right? So profit in dollars, $160. And I netted 40 pips. Okay. Let's go to our next example. Win rate is 70%. Risk reward of 1-to-1. Risk percentage 1%. Our goal is what? 10 pips. What's 1% of our $10,000 account? $100. So at 10 pips, if I'm trading at what lot size would equal $100 at 10 pips? 1.0. A 1.0 lot size. That's $10 per pip, 10 times, that's $100. You guys follow me? Okay. So how many winners did I have in this scenario? 7 times what number? Equals 70. How many losers? Times what number? Equals 30. What's my net? 40 times what? $10 a pip, right? Which equals $400. Okay, let's go to the side by side. You guys ready? Win rate 90%. Win rate 70%. Profit $160. Profit $400. How many more trades did we take in trade 2 than we did in trade 1? They're the same amount of trades? Okay. You're right, right? 10 trades left and right. All right. How many pips did we make? Same amount of pips. So more pips equals more dollars? It depends, right? A higher win rate equals more dollars? It depends, right? In this scenario, the lower percentage of win rate made the bones by more than double, right? So in this scenario, which one of these would be more appealing to you to trade? At a 70%, right? Who doesn't want to make more money, right? I just want to stay broke forever, right? Isn't that what everybody says? Yeah, no, that's not what nobody says that, ever, right?
Nobody will ever trade 70% because they'll have a couple of losers in the middle there and say this doesn't work, we won't continue on.
So, and we'll get to that, right? Because the comment was nobody will ever trade 70% because they'll have a couple of losers in the middle there, and then they'll just kind of, take their walking papers and move on, right? Because somehow we expect that we're just always going to have these winners, right? We don't expect that we're going to have concurrent losers. Okay, to this point, anybody have any questions? You guys are good? You guys are like mathematicians now, right? All right.
Well, what I would want is that 1-to-1 ratio with the 90%.
That's, you know what? Absolutely. Who doesn't? Right? Absolutely. And I'd want it done within a small amount of pips, so I can do that multiple times a day if I wanted to. Right? That's the ultimate goal. So again, more pips I'll tell you right now that vast majority of the time, statistically, right, a scalping approach is going to smoke a long-term approach. There's no competition. There's no competition. For one, with a scalping approach, you're able to take that trade more often, right? And you're able to use a larger lot size because generally with a longer-term approach, you have more what? Drawdown, more risk. So when you have more risk, your lot size has to become smaller. So if I'm going to be able to take that trade more often, right, I'm going to be able to use a larger lot size. That's going to be, and the risk is the same. It doesn't matter, like Troy was saying, it's 1 pip. I'm risking the same risk reward, win rate, all that stuff as you would with a 5 pip, but I'm going to be able to knock down 40 of those in a day, and maybe you're waiting for some specific things in order to justify the 5. And now I'm not saying that you should go and try to do a 1 pip if that's not, you don't just go and try to do something, right? And we'll get to that part too. You want to take a step back and evaluate before you just jump into something. Hiram says, and I'm Hiram, by the way, I'm going to refer to myself as the third person for just a moment, says, oh, well, go take this pattern trade, right? Well, first of all, I don't ever say that. What do I say first? Go and what? Back test this pattern trade, right? And see how it's going to work for you, if it's going to work for you, right? Do you jive with it? Does it fit with your risk appetite, your personality, your trade strategy? After it does, find out scientifically and mathematically how it works for you, the times that you trade, the currency pairs that you trade, the time frames that you trade, right? Is it going to fit for you? So you don't just get to pick something up and run with it, right? We tell our kids that all the time when they're little. Don't run with those scissors. It's the same thing. Don't try to pick up a trade and run with them. It's like running with scissors. And they're pointed at you. You're holding them like this, right? And eventually, it's not if, but when you're done, right? Scissors to your throat is a bad idea. Okay. So here we can see that obviously it depended, right? So again, the question is proposed, the higher win rate equal more dollars. It depends. You can't read that bottom part. I don't know what's wrong with it, but okay. Now, it depends on what? I mean, obviously depends, right? It depends on risk reward. It depends on risk percentage. It depends on win rate, all these different things, right? And that sounds great, right? Now, if I told you, okay, go and back test this setup, it's a classic. Everybody knows the classic. You may not call it the classic, but here's what the classic is. Major, minor are overbought, both cross down simultaneously. The only other thing that we add is just green. The pressure line, green is on bottom of red. That is a classic in what direction? Sell. Everybody is familiar with what a classic is. I say go back test the classic. And tell me what your win rate is. And then after you've got that, tell me what your risk reward is. And then what risk percentage you're going to use. Where would you start? Most of you, and this is okay, would start like this. Scratching your head. Huh? Well, what am I supposed to do? Right? So what I want to do, my goal today is to equip you guys to be self-sufficient. And then inquisitors. When somebody says, oh, here's approach, right? Because here's what's going to happen. And I'll tell you why. Because I've been doing this long enough, but because it also happened to me. I got in trouble. Where did I go? YouTube. I went to somebody else. I went to a Wednesday night, and I watched Brennan use, what is it called? Parallel raise. And I thought that was the bee's knees, and it was going to be the answer to all my woes. Right? And every time anybody said anything different, anytime I was in trouble, I ran to it thinking that was going to be the answer. But none of those things were the answer. I already had the answer. I just didn't know how to connect the dots. I didn't know how to figure it out. So I'm going to connect those dots for you guys, and this is going to make you guys Teflon. There's not going to be anything you're going to introduce into your live account that you don't know scientifically and mathematically is going to work for you And that's how you become a professional day trader, and that's how you make wealth or whatever you want to do, right? If you want to just make a couple $100,000 a year, that's great. If you want to make, a couple $100 a day, awesome. Whatever your goals are for this, when stepping into this, let's achieve those, right? And if you think you're making $1 million in 3 months, it's probably not going to happen, right? I don't know if you guys noticed, but when that slide came up, there's this big red thing that said false. I didn't do it, right? It's BS. It's fake news. It was 18 months. 3 times 6. 18. So 6 times that amount. All right. Yeah, it was 6 months, right? I know but that's kind of how it is. And we joke about it all the time. Somebody's like, "Oh, I've heard a lot about you. I want to trade just like you." And I'm like, "I've heard the rumors too. I want to trade like that guy too," right? That stuff's not true, and that's okay that it's not true. The truth is impressive enough, right? But just because I did that doesn't mean that you're going to. My hope is that you don't. My hope is that you do better. Otherwise, what are we doing here? Right? There needs to be an evolution. The next evolution of trader needs to appear. Troy, when I started, even when I brought Troy in, I was still developing some of the concepts that now is like doctrine for us. And the idea is that it's always going to be that way. I want to always evolve. What's the next evolutionary step to make this process better? How can we deliver this information in a more effective way so that more people can understand it, right? So we're always developing, we're always trying to cultivate our process and our approach and our product. And for you guys, it should be the same way, right? You guys should always, look at it in that regard and say, okay, what's the next evolutionary step for me in my trading, right? If that's what your goals are. If your goals are just take the money and run, awesome, great. I'm not telling you how to set your goals. Whatever it is that you decided you wanted to do with day trading, do that thing. And I'm going to show you guys how, right? But I doubt that when you were in kindergarten, somebody asked you what you wanted to do for a living. When you grow up, you said, I want to be a day trader, right? You want to be a cop or veterinarian or whatever it might be. And maybe some of those things you're not capable of doing anymore, but whatever it is that you want to do now, how about just day trade to get the dollars and then just go do whatever you want? Anybody else want to do that? Cool. Yeah, Troy's like, I want to golf. I'm like, dude, I'll give you like 3 months. You'll be back. I'm not going to coach once I hit these benchmarks. Yeah, right. I said the same thing. And like Ashley said, I'm not a coach, right? But I coach all the time. I just don't coach individual students. First of all, you can't afford me. Second, I don't want to be married to anyone for 12 weeks. It's a job for me. It'd be like a job. I don't enjoy that. I enjoy teaching this stuff, but I don't enjoy having to show up and working on a syllabus. I don't enjoy any of that, so I'm not going to do it. But guess who gets to decide that? Me, right? And if I come in and I'm having a bad day or whatever, or I just decide I don't want to come to the office, then I don't. Or sometimes I sleep here. It don't matter. It's whatever I want to do, right? So, get to that point. And the great part about day trading is that you don't have a boss. You don't have is the Forex market or the futures market, S&P market, is that going to go out of business and you're not going to be able to trade that anymore? No, right? So you're good, right? You create job security, and there's no one that can affect that. Doesn't matter who you upset, except if it's the IRS. Don't upset the IRS, right? That's just the rule. I think everyone knows that, right? Death and taxes, and they're going to tax you to death, so just be careful. All right. Yeah. So it depends on what, right? So first thing is win rate, and it's not necessarily that it's the first thing, but I'm gonna formulate it this way because when you ask someone, let's say that so I did this and some of you guys were here on Wednesday night, so I went up to these different forums, these webinars that you can attend about trading. They always make me laugh. Yeah, this is what I do in my, for entertainment, right? Some of you guys watch Netflix, and now I go and watch other people make fools of themselves trying to sell garbage. You can sometimes ask questions. Sometimes they'll filter the questions. Other times they'll let questions through. I realize that the question that they always let through is win rate. What's your win rate on this trade? Now, you got to understand that what you're asking is the win rate of the individual that's presenting. when you say that, you're asking the individual, unless they formulate the response differently, they're giving you what their win rate is, whatever their parameters are, which they don't generally discuss. So they'll say something like, well, we have seen, or they'll say, and so you got to know the difference, right? They'll say, we have seen, and that means that they're looking at their organization as a whole. And so they'll give you a win rate. Well, it's kind of a setup. We want them to dig themselves a hole a little bit. Most people are allured by high win rate. Now, that's why we debunked that fast at first, right? High win rate doesn't mean squat if your risk reward is a bust. Matter of fact, 99% win rate could still lose money. And since you can't go to Walmart and pay for your groceries with a win rate, it's worthless, right? You can't pay your electric bill with that stuff, okay? So win rate doesn't matter as much as risk to reward, risk percentage, probability, in other words, money management, right? Okay, so you ask them what their win rate is because they're going to dig themselves a ditch. Right now, at that point, they're trying to sell you something, just like we did. We were trying to sell you something. We showed you, hey, this is our indicators, this is our program, right? Try it out. If you like it, let's take the next step and let's get you into a coaching program, right? So I'm not dogging on them for trying to sell you something. I'm dogging on them for trying to sell you crap. Okay? So win rate, they're going to bury themselves. Oh, yeah, we're hitting like 90% on this. All right, great. Follow it up with this. What's your risk reward? And then they realize that they're in the trench, and either they won't answer the question or they'll give you the right answer, even though it may not be the true answer, or just backpedal, right? So it's not enough to know the questions. You need to know the answers, right? What were we talking about on Wednesday night? It's like, well, my son asked me, what's 1,557,000 times 6 billion? And I'm like, oh, 1 trillion. He's like, wow, Dad, that was incredible. And I just made up the number. But he doesn't know the right answer, so he didn't know I got it wrong, right? So it's the same thing with this. When you ask, you need to know what to do with these numbers and whether whatever the person is telling you is going to work or is true, right? And so if they know what the right answer is, they're going to give you the right answer. Generally, they're going to ask you, what do you mean by that? Risk reward, right? Because they want to know that you know what you're asking. And then you ask them, okay, if your take profit, what's your take profit and what's your stop loss, right? And that's going to give you your risk reward. And then you'll run into another issue a lot of times with risk percentage as well, because that's the next thing. Risk percentage. Risk percentage is a little more nuanced, and we'll go into that later. But risk percentage, well, what percentage are you risking? A lot of times they'll flip that, right? They'll say, well, we're going for a 2% trade here. Well, what does that mean? When somebody says we're going for 2%, what is 2% of their account, right? So let's say it's 10,000. So how much are they going for? $200. That means they're trying to get $200. But what are they risking? And the question was, what is your risk percentage? So, we're going for $200, and here's how it's going to break down. They'll go on to these like impressive stats, and then they're going to show you all this stuff and be like, okay, all these winners, we do all these winners, and then you just add them all up together, and this is the number, right? And it's like, well, that's if you want 100%. You don't know where your losers are going to end up, so you can't do it that way, right? It's not like a flat rule of 70 where you're just going to say, okay, it compounds by this much, and this is what the number is going to be, because that's not real. Because we're trading a percentage of our account. So if I'm trading 1% and I take a loss, right, then I adjust my lot size which direction? Up to make up for it? Up to make up for it?
No.
You know what? Not everybody said no. Just please, what's the word? No, don't do that, right? It's 1% of your account, and if that's what you're risking on that trade, it's always 1%. So if you lost $100, well, 1% of your account is a new number, which means you need to adjust your lot size down and up. So your lot size fluctuates just like your trades do, right? So there's no way for anybody to say, well, I had all these winners, and because I had all these winners, then that's going to equal this much dollars, right? And even if we did it the way we looked at it earlier, where we had the side-by-side, right? That's not the way it's exactly going to fall out. Matter of fact, it's going to be a little better because of compounding, right? But more importantly, it's not going to fall out even if you try to figure out compounding. It's not going to fall out exactly that way. because you have a loser. And so your new account balance, you're going to trade 1% on that, which means your lot size is going to change. And you have a new winner. That's going to increase your account balance. And all those numbers are never the same. So one thing that we always look for, and this is a secret, and I'm going to tell you guys this secret because it's going to challenge you. When somebody says they're a professional day trader, I've got a couple questions that I ask them. And even if they don't say they're a professional day trader, but they say they day trade, I ask them what lot size they use. And the reason why I ask them that, because they think a lot of times it's a setup, right? But if they use a round lot size, or they say, well, it just depends, right? I mean, if my account is this and they give me an example, okay, cool, you're legit, right? But if they say, oh yeah, I'm trading at like a 14 lot. All right, so that's a round number. Are you really doing any math to figure out why you should justify a 14 lot, or just putting in that 14 lot? And generally the answer is they're just putting in that 14 lot, which means they're full of it, right? Most of the time. And that's the truth. There's a lot of garbage out there. You guys would be, so here's what you're going to do. Here's your homework, okay? I'm going to show you guys this stuff, and just go and pick something on YouTube. Go and Google something on, go on to YouTube and look up day trading. A million videos that come up. Pick one of them, right? And watch their setup, and watch how they word things. And they don't talk a lot about risk reward. They'll talk about win rate. They won't talk a lot about risk percentage. They'll say, look at how many pips we could have got on this trade, and they'll explain to you their setup. And then if you understand what their setup is as they're explaining it, a lot of times as they're clicking forward, you can see, oh, you missed, why didn't you show me those other 6 that just tanked, right? Why are you showing me this one now, right? Which, there's everyone does some facet of that, right? I mean, when we're lining up a classic in a demo, we obviously want to make sure we're lining up concurrent back-to-back winners, right? Because we want to show you this is how our indicator works. And it works really accurately. But do we have time to explain to you, well, the losers are there, and of course we're going to lose, and we got to have this risk reward, and we got to have risk percentage. The way you figure that out is by forget it. You guys are going to be like, huh? I can't do all that. I'm gone, right? And that's why the education part makes sense, right? Because it's not enough to have the right tool. We talk about this all the time. It's not enough to have the right tool. You got to know how to use the tool. Okay. So win rate, risk reward, risk percentage. So in other words, proper money management, right? Okay. So how do I establish my win rate? Somebody.
Backtesting.
That is the right question. That is the right answer. Backtest. Backtest, backtest, backtest. That's the right answer. Backtesting is simply going back on your charts historically and locating examples of your trade setup for times of day you are committed to trade. How many of you guys trade at 1 a.m. Mountain Standard Time to 5 a.m. Mountain Standard Time? Sometimes. So 2 of you guys. Anyone else? Okay. For those of you guys that are trading the 1 a.m., so is it like 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4? 2 a.m.? 2 a.m. And what about you? Sometimes catch the red eye? Yeah, when you wake up. Okay. So what you'll find is that either it's going to be based on where you are geographically in the world or what your work schedule is, right? Because I have bartenders and servers that trade with us, and they get out at 2 a.m. and they get home at 3 a.m. So they're trading at that time. Where they're not trading is 7 a.m., 9 a.m., 10 a.m. What are they doing in that time? Sleeping. Well, if it's noon here, what time is it in Australia, right? Or in other parts of the country? There's always traders trading in the market, but are you going to test for all of those times? No, because you're not going to trade all of those times. So you're only going to test for the times that you're available to trade. And be careful with that word available, because whatever you commit to trading, you need to commit to putting in a trade every time your setup is there 90% of the time. Otherwise, your backtesting data is going to be a little off, right? Most of the time, if you say, I'm going to trade these 2 hours a day, trade those 2 hours a day. Things happen, right? You're not able to take that trade, whatever it may be. But that should be the exception. The rule is take the trade. So when you consider which times you're available to trade, make sure that they're times that you can commit to trade, right? These are my trade times. Okay, so sorry if you guys thought that trading was going to be a vacation and you're just going to be like, yeah, I'm just going to leisurely wait for those indicators to tell me something to push the button. I'm going to be rich tomorrow, right? Nope. Sorry. somebody told you that, they lied to you, I'll apologize, but now let's fix it, right? Okay. So for each instance that you encounter, you will record how the market reacted after your setup occurred. Here's my setup. What did the market do, right? There's a couple ways to backtest. There's a dynamic way that takes like 3 sessions generally for us to teach correctly. So let's talk about the other way, which is not as effective and sometimes takes much longer, but at least it gets you started in the right direction. Let's say that you just want to speculate that you're going to get a 5 pip take profit and a 15 pip stop loss on the classic, right? Which is the double cross. So you go back in your charts, and every time you see that setup, you mark it, right? And then, okay, did the market go? Did this currency pair go 5 pips before hitting a 15 pip stop loss? If the answer is yes, then you get a tally mark for winner. If it's no, you get a tally mark for loser, right? Now, at the end of that, you're going to have all these tally marks of winners and losers. And then when you compare them, you have your risk-to-reward ratio, right? I have this many losers, or rather, sorry, not risk-reward, your win percentage. Because you take the winning number and the total number of trades and divide the winning number by the total number of trades times 100. Right? And that gives you your win rate. So what if you have a 3-to-1, okay? I'm going to repeat that because just in my head I was confused, and some of you guys kind of have like this doe in the headlights look. So let's run that again. I've got 100 examples. Out of those 100 examples, I have, let's just say, 70 of them, let's use that number because we were already using that number, 70 of them that are successful trades. If I used a 5 pip take profit and a 15 pip stop loss. So what is my win percentage? 70%, right? It's not always going to be that easy, guys, but we're using round numbers just so we can kind of connect these dots. 70%. And I have 30 losers, right? Okay. Now, if I took my 70 winners and times that by 5, what's that number? Okay. If I took my 30 losers and timed that by 15, what's that number? Which number is bigger? Does that work? No. Are you going to trade that? No, because it doesn't work. So it's a yes-no proposition when you backtest that way. You get to the end, and then you know whether or not what you just tested is going to work. If the answer is no, guess what you have to do? Go back over it again. Oh, I'll just stick with that, right? Go back over it again and say, okay, what if I only took a 3 pip take profit and a 15? And if that doesn't work, then you got to do it again and again and again, right? Where if you dynamically backtest, you just say, here's my setup. What did the market do? Record that information. And there are parameters and there's ways to do that effectively. But again, it just takes too long to explain in just this one sitting, so we're not going to do that today. Okay? If you guys want to learn how to do that, you can join the mastermind, or you guys come to Wednesday nights. We talk about it pretty often then, and you can learn how to do it there. Once you have collected all your backtest data, determine what percentage of your trades would have been successful. This will give you your win rate, right? So all we want to do first is just establish how we can get to a number that gives us a win rate. Now, win rate doesn't necessarily mean that, good, it's 90%. That means that this is going to win for me. No, you got to figure out if it fits within the risk to reward, right? So how do I establish my risk to reward? The answer is the same as the last. Okay, come on, everybody. All right, thank you. Holy cow. I'm glad I'm not the only one awake over here. All right. So when analyzing your backtest data, compare how many pips you are able to achieve by the amount of pips that first went against you. Pips against you, or pips against your position is referred to as drawdown. So when we say drawdown, that just means the amount that the market went against you in the time that that trade setup after the trade setup was present. So your drawdown to peak pips is risk to reward, right? So it drew down. So here's my setup. It went against me 5 pips at first, and then it came and it would have gone into profit for the 5 pips that I was looking for. Okay, so let's say that I have 20 examples from last week where I had 9 of them win and 1 of them lose for a 5 pip take profit and a 5 pip stop loss. That's a 1-to-1. It's 90%. Sounds great, right? Everyone's like, okay, where can I borrow money? Here's the thing: is that's hardly scientific. That was that amount of data was representative of that week, not just about every market condition. So when we backtest, we go back to January 2015, and we backtest from there. And right now we're doing to December 2018. Then when we have our data, we look at what we've done in 2019 to see if it fits, right? So we backtest and we say, okay, here's my setup. What did the market do? And then I analyze the information and say, okay, based on the times that I trade, the currency pair that I trade, the time frame, so on and so forth, this is what it looks like. Let's break that information down. Where is my peak? Where's my optimal profit? Where's my optimal stop? Does that fit within a risk to reward ratio that's going to make sure I make money? Yes. All right. Now I have scientific finding, because that employs what's called the law of large numbers. Write that down. You guys can look that up later. The law of large numbers, which is called a law, and I didn't just make it up, right? It's mathematical law of large numbers, and you'll see why that's effective when backtesting. So you have to have a scientific finding. In other words, if I took one trade and I won that trade, is my win rate 100%? Yeah, for that one trade. Is it going to stay that way? Nope. Definitely not. It's a guarantee. No one has, to this point, no one has ever had a 100% win rate as a professional day trader. That doesn't mean that people haven't had 100% win rates. It just means that they don't continue with that, right? I went on a streak where I didn't lose a trade for 10 months. It was like March, I want to say 16 to, no, it was May 16 to like March 17. Average of one trade a day, 10 pips. Some of those days I took 2 10-pip trades. And I'm not talking about hedging and price averaging. I'm talking about not losing those trades, picking them correctly. And nothing changed about my process. Not after trade 1 or trade 100. This whole process stayed the same. This is how much I'm going to risk. Everything stayed the same, right? And after you hit a streak, after like 3 months, all of a sudden you're like, all right, what underwear did I wear that first day, right? You're like, let's try to repeat everything about that. But every day was like, here it comes. I'm expecting the loser. I'm expecting the loser today. All right, today. All right, today. This trade. It's like, holy cow. I know it's coming, so I'm just going to plan for it, right? And that's it. And so as long as I was consistent and I stuck to my rules, that was awesome. That was an awesome 9 months in my account. That was live, right? It wasn't demo. And I'm not saying that I won 100% of those trades because I picked a trade and it lost and I hedged it and I price averaged that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I picked a trade, it won. I picked a trade, it won. I picked a trade, it won, right? For 9 months. It was incredible. It was awesome.
So what happened on the losing streak?
I picked a trade, it lost. That's it. Nothing changed, right? But yeah, except the lot size, and my account balance definitely went up, right? But the way I was trading at the time is not pattern. It was not pattern based, right? It's not like I'm waiting for. In other words, I didn't sit around waiting for a setup unless it was positioning. I said, what are the indicators telling me? Okay, I can see what they're saying. Now, do I want to get in now or do I want to wait for some positioning? No, I can just get in now, right? Or I'll wait for some positioning. But it's not like, well, I want to wait till the majors are down here and then point it up. And then most of the time, if you guys saw the stuff that I bought and sold on, you guys would be like, wait, but those are all the way up. Or those are, yep, that's why I'm doing that, right? It's like I had a guy talk to the other night. He says, one time I saw a 10-point. Was you, Dr. Zed?
Me.
One time I saw a 10-point where all 10 points were present. And he says, I got all excited. I placed a trade, and it went against me. Of course it did. It's maxed out, right? When everything is pointed in that direction, that's generally you got to get that, okay, maybe I should start looking for a reason to go the other direction, right? I'm not saying just execute, right? Because if I have that perception that when I get all those parameters present that I should trade the other direction, what should I do with that information in order to see if it's valid? You guys see a recurring theme here? All right, good. So when analyzing your backtest data, compare how many pips you are able to achieve by the amount of pips that first went against you. So the pips against your position is referred to as drawdown. So your drawdown, right, to peak pips is your risk to reward. Now, all those numbers are going to be different. Sometimes it's going to draw down 0 and then go 100 pips in your favor. Sometimes it's going to draw down 15 and go 3 pips in your favor. All these different numbers, right? And then we analyze those numbers and figure out which of these are going to be consistent and give us the proper risk to reward ratio within the win rate, right? And when we have that, then we have science and math that's backing our approach, right? So it's probability. We're using probability, and we'll talk about that later on as well. Anybody have any questions about risk to reward or how that plays into our trading? Yes.
Can you just repeat that last little bit that you were talking about, just explaining the risk reward? So
Yes.
the drawdown, you're tracking how many pips it goes down to find like an average of how.
It's not an average, because what's an average? 50%, right?
Yeah.
So we don't want to use an average. It's a little more complicated than that. So we're in the process of building out an automated autoregressive model for that data to create a stochastic valuation, which is a fancy way of saying we're going to look at the setup that you take. So it has to be, that's the other trick, is it's one setup. So you say, this one thing I'm going to back test on this one currency pair. How does that work out for me, right? So let me show you an example. Let's see, I think I've actually got one in here. And we'll go over this chart first. So how do I establish my risk reward? When establishing a profitable, right? Not just a risk reward, but a profitable risk reward. There are a million wrong answers and a handful of correct answers. If you are, and I'm going to get to your question. So if you are uncertain where to start, here's the conservative foundation. Okay. Take a picture of it, write it down. There's a lot to write down there. But let's start with the first column on the left. That says win rate. So I've back tested now, and I can see that I have a 70% or greater win rate. Now you'll notice that that second line from top on the left says less than 70% do not trade this pair or setup or whatever. And the reason why I have that there is because when you first start, try to find something that's going to be at least 70. It's not hard. It's not difficult. When you guys were light members, you guys were probably trading better than a 70%. You just didn't know it yet, right? 70% is simple for us. It's easy to win. We win easier than anyone else. But that doesn't matter if you don't know how to figure out the risk reward and keep that winner, right? If you're losing it all on losing trades because you don't know how to do money management, then it doesn't matter if you win better than anybody else because you're not making any money. Ultimately, we're doing this to make money. How many of you guys just want to have a good win rate and make a whole bunch of pips, but you don't care if it makes you money? Not even one of you? Really? Right, because that's stupid.
I'm going to sell seminars. Yep.
Yeah, I want to say, yeah, right? I'll just sell seminars. That's right. No, that's stupid. You don't want to do that. You want to make money. You want to make profit. And that hopefully that's not your goal, right? You don't want to just stare at it. You want to do something with it. So win rate, let's just use the example of 70 to 79%. And I use that just because 70% to 79% just want to stay as conservative as possible. My risk percentage for a 70 to 79%, I'm saying 0.5%. You can use anywhere from 0.5% to say 1.5% risk. Okay, so that $10,000 account, you're only going to be risking like what 50 to 125 bucks, right? So that means that if you have a 2 to 1, you're making half that, 25 to 65 bucks or whatever, right? Okay, your take profit. Notice that it doesn't give a number. It says divide stop loss by, for 70 to 79%, divide stop loss by what number? By 2, right? By 2 or less. So let's say I have a 35 pip take profit with a 73% win rate. What is my stop loss? Yep, just about, right? 17? It's going to be 2 to 1, so it's going to be 70. What if I have a 20 pip stop loss at 80%? what's the max? What's the minimum take profit I'd have to take on that trade if I have an 80% win rate and a 20 pip stop loss?
6 and a half.
Yep, somewhere around there, right? 6 1/3, because it would be a 3 to 1, right? So whatever my stop loss is, I divide by 3 or less, right? Not more, because if I divide it by more than that, it's not going to make sense mathematically. It's just because that's how math is, right? Okay. So let's look at some examples, and here's your cheat sheet. So 70 to 79, 80 to 83, 84, 86, 87 to 89, 90%. And we'll use these numbers right here, and then we'll look at both take profit and stop loss. So there's going to be questions, so pay attention. If I don't think you're paying attention, I'm going to ask you directly. All right, so our account balance is 10 grand. We have a 1% risk on a $10,000 account, and so we're only risking $100. We took 10 trades, and our win rate is, we back tested it to be 75% accurate. Okay? Now, we've decided that we're going to use a 2 to 1 risk to reward because we could do that, right? 70 to 79%. Our stop loss is 20 pips. If our stop loss is 20 pips, what's our take profit? 10 pips. Okay. And if our stop loss, or our risk percentage is 1%, what lot size are we using? 1.0. Who else?
0.01.
So what number is, let's look at a risk to reward. What risk to reward are we using here? A 2 to 1, right? Okay, what does that equal in pips for our stop loss? 20, which means that's how we figured out we had a 10 pip take profit. Now, we're risking 1% of a $10,000 account, which equals $100. Now, how far are we going to let the market go and it equal $100 before it takes, before it comes and gives us profit? If it goes, how far are we going to stop that trade and take the loser? 20 pips. Now 20 pips has to equal how many dollars then? 100. So what lot size would we use? 0.5. 0.5 lots. Because 0.5 lots is $5 per pip. You guys know what lots are, right? Volume lots. You guys know what that means? Okay. So 20 pips times $5 is $100. $100 is 1% of $10,000. Right? Okay. So we took 7.5 winning trades times how many pips? 10 pips. So we have 75 pips. We have 2.5 losers times 20 equals -50. So our net pips is 25, right? So we have 25 net pips at how many dollars per pip? 5. Now to do $5 per pip, what's your lot size? 0.5. That doesn't always make sense, right? And part of that is because it's 0.5. If we look at 0.5, it's like 50 cents per micro pip, right? 50 cents per micro pip. But we're not trading micro pips, we're trading regular pips, which is the second to last number. So 0.5 would make sense if we were trading micro pips because that looks like 50 cents. And 1.00 would make sense because that's $1 per micro pip. But it's times 10, right? So it's $10 per pip and $5 per pip with a 0.5 lot size. So 25 pips at $5 a pip, what's our profit? In dollars, $125, right? Okay. So let's go to our next. And this is, that should say example 2, sorry. Example 2, we have a $10,000 account. We took 10 trades. We have an 83% win rate that we've back tested for. And I'm still going to get to your question, by the way. 83% that we've back tested for. What risk to reward can we use just based on the little chart there? 1 to 2.5%, right? 1 to 2.5%. So Oh, sorry, that was our no, risk reward, not our risk percentage. So our risk reward is going to be 3 to 1 or less, right? That means that I can risk up to 3 times the amount that I'm looking for profit if I hit this trade 80% or greater, and I'll still make profit, right? So there's a line there that says if you go beyond this line, if you try to use a 4 to 1, it's not going to work for you. You can use a 3 to 1, 2 to 1, 1 to 1, 1 to 2, 1 to 3. Those are fun. 1 to 4, right? Okay. But you can't use greater than a 3 to 1. So if my take profit on this trade is 10 pips, and I'm using a 3 to 1, what's my stop loss? I can wait. We're good. All right, 30. But for this trade, we're going to use 20 because we don't have to use 30. We can use something less if we've back tested for it, right? So I know this is my parameter. I'd like to hit 70%, which means I need to find a trade that's 2 to 1. So can I get 10 pips within a 20 before it goes 20 pips against me, right? Maybe the answer is no, or maybe it's better than that. But I can't say, well, it won 70% of the time if I use the 3 to 1 ratio, because the 3 to 1 won't work with 70% because of math. I took 10 pips, 7 times 10 is 70. I lost 3 trades times 3 times 10, right, which is 30. So if I lost 3, that's 90, right? So 90 is bigger than 70 last time I checked. And if the 90 represents my loss and the 70 represents my gain, then I didn't make any dollars. And that doesn't make any sense, right? See what I did with the words there? You like that? Right? Okay. Just want to make sure you guys are awake, man. You're starting to bore me. All right. So risk percentage is 2.5%. We're risking the top end of that because we're at the top end, right? 83%. We're only using a 2 to 1 where we could justify a 3 to 1. Do you see how we can play with these numbers and make them a little more fluid? If our parameters are present, then we can be a little more fluid with those things, right? And you guys might not be able to do that at first and figure out where can I give and take if my number is not exactly 80, which is not going to be, or exactly 70. It's going to be 73, 76. It's going to be 84, 82.5, whatever, right? How much extra can I get out of this? And this is what the data is showing me. Right now, I'm just going to give you ranges, try to stick with those, and you'll figure them out as you go. But let's start somewhere, and I say simple, but it takes a minute to figure these things out sometimes, right? Okay. So my lot size then, or my volume, the lot size that I'm going to use to place this trade, let's first do the math. What size is our account? What's 2.5% of 10,000? 250 bucks. All right. What's my stop loss? I'll tell you on this, it's 20 because it says 30 pips right there, but this trade we're doing 20. Okay? So we're doing 20 pips stop loss. What lot size can I use that would equal $250 in 20 pips? 1.25, right? Because 20 pips times $12.50 a pip is $250. Okay? So my lot size is 1.25. That means every time it moves for or against me, it's worth $12.50. Now, that's not always the case, right? You guys have noticed if you're trading in different currency pair and stuff like that, sometimes those numbers aren't exactly round, right? GJ, you're not going to get, if you're trading a 1.00 lot size and you take 10 pips, you're going to get like 97 bucks. You're not going to get 100 bucks. Right, so sometimes those numbers are off just by a little bit. Don't sweat that too much. Let's just take the assumption that we're trading the euro versus U.S. dollar. Okay, so 1.25 lots. That's $12.50 per pip. And if I draw down 20 pips and hit that stop loss, then I lose $250. That's what I'm willing to risk. Okay. Now, if I'm using a 2 to 1, right? How much can I make? 125, because it's 2 to 1, right? So it doesn't make sense at first glance. Why am I going to risk twice as much as I'm going to make? How would that make sense? Why would that make sense? Why would anybody want to do that? Well, it doesn't make sense unless you understand your win percentage, right? Because it doesn't matter if you're risking more than you're making if it makes you profit, and win percentage determines that. If I win 80%, 83% of these trades, I win 10 pips 83% of the time. I lose 20 pips, but it's only 17% of the time. Which number is going to be bigger? My profit's going to be bigger, right? So does that work? Yes, mathematically, scientifically, it works. So then we execute it. So 8.3 trades times 10 pips, 83 pips, right? 1.7 losers times 20 pips, negative 34. So my net is 49. My lot size is $12.50 per pip, which is a 1.25 lot size, 49 times. $612.50. Right? Okay. Is anybody struggling with these? Because if you are, you should say something. Because if you don't have a grasp on these things, you're not going to be a successful trader. So just pack it in and don't come back. I'm not laughing.
Or else figure it out.
I don't want you to lose money. Does anybody want to lose money?
No.
Sorry, no.
You
I
done
was
messed
not
up.
raising
No.
my-
No, go ahead.
Okay, so this, if I'm understanding this right, so that's wins times the take profit. Is that right? By the
Wins.
number of pips.
Yep.
For the take profit.
So
And
yeah,
then your losses times
the number of
pips
stop
for
loss.
your stop losses.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah. So how many winners do we have? 8.3 out of 10 trades, right? So times how many pips? 10 pips. So if I took 8.3 trades for 10 pips each, or if I took 10 trades for 10 pips each and I won 83% of them, then I won 8.3 of them for 10 pips each. So 8.3 times 10 is 83. Now I lost 1.7 of those trades. And each time I lose 20 pips. So 1.7 losers and 20 pips per loser is negative 34. Right? Well, it's 34, but we're using it as negative. So 83 minus 34 equals 49.
But that's with you tightening up your stop loss too. Extra tab. If you were allowed.
Yeah. In this, yes, exactly. In this example, we said we could go up to a 3-to-1, but this trade, 20 pips, right?
Yeah.
So in parentheses right there.
2-to-1.
This trade is a 2-to-1. Yep.
It says 3-to-1
Or less. Yep. So because I want you guys to see that there's room to build in here, I don't want to just use the maximum amount. You guys think you have to get a 3-to-1 with an 80%. You don't have to get a 3-to-1. If you got a 1-to-1, do that. That's better. That's more money, right?
Sure.
But sometimes just being introduced to some of these concepts and trying to digest them, I've got to be careful about what I say, because if I say 3-to-1 for 80%, your assumption, if you don't know better, is I have to do a 3-to-1. And that assumption is incorrect, so I wanted to make sure to clarify with an example. You don't have to do a 3-to-1, you just can't do more than a 3-to-1 with an 80%. You can do anything over here. So again, we have a million wrong answers, but there's a handful of right answers. There's not one right answer, there's a handful of right answers. And the right answer always equals profit. If it doesn't, then it's the wrong answer. And if it's too close, then it's the wrong answer. Right? Because we haven't even considered commissions, swaps, all that stuff, right? And we're not going to, by the way, because we're not going to get that close. We don't want to be in that area where it's like, I'm just barely squeaking by, and some days I actually lose dollars because of commissions. No, we're not going to do that. We're going to stay on this side over here where it's like profit, and we don't even care that much about commissions and swaps. I mean, unless you're doing a 1-pip trade, which you probably want to be, like Troy, he does 1.2 pips, right? He wants to cover his commission.
Why do you say never risk more than 5%?
That's a great question. Why do I say never risk more than 5%? So we'll get to that next. The only reason I didn't want to show the example of how to backtest your question is because for whatever reason, when I stopped this presentation, I was kind of running an example or a test earlier. I have to go in and reset my display settings and all kinds of other stuff. But So we'll get to some examples of some of these things that we've talked about today. But I wanted to get through these slides first, okay? Because this information right here is what's going to make you Teflon. This is what's going to make you self-sufficient as a trader. And when somebody says, oh, well, you know, this is the trade that I take, like Dr. Zed, right? Where'd he go? He says, oh, there you are. You moved. He says, you know, I've got this trade set up, and this is what I'm doing with it, right? And that's what works for him, his risk appetite, his personality, and his trade strategy, right? But if you say, well, I like what he's doing because he's making all kinds of, you know, dollars, he's making all kinds of pips, he's doing all the right things, I want to do that. Well, you don't just get to do that. You got to ask the right questions. Win percentage, risk reward, risk percentage. You got to know what the answers to these are as well, and how to figure them out for yourselves. Now, don't worry, I'm going to give you guys a cool little calculator to do all the work for you, but that calculator is also going to work on the conservative parameters, right? So 70 to 79%, you're going to do, it's going to calculate for 0.5% risk, not 0.5 to 1.5%. And it's going to tell you this is the recommended stop loss and take profit, and I'll show that to you guys later as well. Okay, any other questions about that? Did that make sense with the risk reward? And okay, anyone else? Good. All right. Risk percentage. Why does this matter? If I'm risking no more than 5% max, or if I'm risking 1.5% on a 70% trade, 70% of the time I'm gonna, you know, lose. Let's just say I decide I'm gonna use 5%. 70% of the time I'm gonna win, you know, 2.5% or more, and 30% of the time I'm gonna lose 5%. So what's the big deal? It's still going to it's just going to make me profit faster, right? Okay. And it will theoretically, but you have a couple things working against you. One is a thing called margin call. Anybody know what that is yet? I do. I know what it is. I've hit them, right? In demo accounts. I've margined my account. Gone. No more, right? Margin calls. Does that get to zero? No, it doesn't have to get to zero. It gets to a certain percentage of your account, and then it closes your trades. It starts cascading your trades. And second is, how many of you guys are corporate funding? How many of you guys are going to get corporate funded or have corporate funding? Okay, 50% draw. That's what you're allowed, which is awesome. That's actually like 30% more than any other organization allows, by the way. And the organizations that allow that, there are so many restrictions. It's like, how does anybody or want to or even are successful at trading your dollars? It's ridiculous, right? So 50% drawdown. We want to stay far away from that. Again, we don't want to walk the line. We want to stay far away from that, okay? So let's say that we have, because the probability of back-to-back losers, we never want to risk too large a lot size relative to the size of our account, right? Otherwise, we run the risk of margin calls and the like. So plan for success and always begin with the end in mind. So if I take a 70% trade, I know that I'm going to have back-to-back losers, at least 3 back-to-back losers pretty consistently, right? Not all the time, but the probability is there that I will have 3 back-to-back losers pretty consistently. Now, if I have 3 back-to-back losers pretty consistently, then, you know, I know that I can have 4 or even 5. After 6 and 7, you start pushing it, and it's not going to happen very often, if at all. But I know that I'm going to have 3 or 4, maybe even 5 back-to-back losers. It's not if. I know I'm going to have that at 70%. It's just how probability works out, right? So let's take just 10 trades. If I had 10 trades and I have a 70% win rate, how many of those trades won? 7. How many of them lost? Okay. Can I hit 4 back-to-back losers in that sequence of 10?
In that sequence of 10, no. There's only 10, and it is 70%, no.
No, because there's not 4 losers, right? Okay. So, and this is an argument the other day because it's like, well, what's the rule of replacement, right? But we're not talking about that. What we're talking about is being able to look at our risk percentage and tie it to our win percentage. And our win percentage is going to tell us we have the probability of concurrent losers and in any scenario, right? Because we're even at 90%, because we're not just going to take 10 trades. Eventually, we're going to have 20 trades and 30 trades and 40 trades. So the probability of having concurrent losers starts to appear the more trades you have, right? And sometimes the larger the concurrent losers, the probability exists. But after a while, the probability of having, say, 5 concurrent losers with a 90% win rate is very, very slim to none. But we're still going to account for it if it can happen. So if I have a 70% win rate, so I know that the probability is that I'm going to have back-to-back losers. It's going to happen. It's not if, it's when. Then I'm going to plan for that to happen from the beginning. Because I don't know when it's going to happen. I just know that it's going to happen. You guys follow me? Right? It's not. I mean, some things in life are not that cool, right? Like insurance. You don't know. You could go the rest of your life and never get in a car accident. You still have to have insurance, right? So this is not like insurance. This is guarantee, right? You're saying this is going to happen. If I have a 70% win rate, I'm going to have 3 losers. I can have them back to back, and because I can have them back to back, it will happen. It's not like the rule of the universe, it's just rule of math. It's going to happen the more trades you take, right? So when you take those, let's say that the number is 6. That we know that mathematically we're going to hit those 6 losers, not if, but when. Take enough of those trades with that 70%, we're going to hit 6 back-to-back losers. Let's say that's our number. So if I'm only risking 1% of my account per trade, when I hit those 6 back-to-back losers, it'll be less than 6%. Can anybody tell me why it'll be less than 6%? Yes, exactly. You lost, so your lot size goes lower. And you lose again, your lot size goes lower, so on and so forth and so on. So you're not going to lose 6%, you're going to lose less than that, but that's going to keep us way out of the danger zone. Besides, you're going to be hard-pressed to be a successful day trader if you're regularly drawing your account down by more than 5%. You're just not going to be, it's not going to work for you. Yes.
You're changing your percentages every trade,
Not percentages, lot size.
lot size. You're doing the calculations every trade.
Yes.
So you know what your next.
You have to.
Every trade.
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah. And so if it's the same approach, so because there's percentages is too vague a term. So let's clarify. I have a $10,000 account like we've been looking at, and then I've made 6 trades at a 2-to-1, right? So I've got, and I don't want you guys to take out your calculators. I don't want you, but I've got, I just lost a trade, and it was for 20 pips, and I've got 5 other winners. Now, my first trade when it was 10,000, I put in a 1.00 lot size. Can you tell me right off the top of your head what the new lot size would be after 6 trades, 1 loser, 5 winners?
0.08.
No, I mean, could you really? No, because first of all, where did that loser happen? We don't know. So what was our lot size on the next trade after we made that first winner? What if that was the loser? Let's say the first trade was a winner. So now we have $10,100. What's our new lot size? 1.0001 or 1.01, right? Okay, so because we're trading 1% of that 0.1 as well. It's 1% of our account balance, right? All right, so now I take another trade and I win. Now my account is not 10,200, it's 10,201, right? But cool, I made an extra dollar. Now I have a $10,201 account. What's my lot size? And so on. Okay, this is a loser. Now I lost $300 or $200. All right, what was my lot size at that $200? Okay, now this is my new account balance. What's 1% of that? Yeah, I do that. You have to every trade. Otherwise, you're leaving money on the table or you're risking too much.
Yeah.
There's no way of knowing unless you figure it out per trade. And I've got a solution for that, by the way. Yes.
So do you divvy this math up among multiple trades ever? You don't just have one trade going at a time, or do you?
In like active trade, press the buy button, and then I've got other trades going on.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is, again, and I'm glad you asked that question. Begin with the end in mind, right? Are you planning on taking more than one trade concurrently? So you place a trade, let's say your approach is a long-term approach. Obviously, you've got your back testing, you know what your risk to reward is, you know what your lot size is going to be for that trade. But you know that generally, you're going to take 2 or 3 trades while that 100 pips goes through, right? And maybe they're smaller trades, but they have their own risk percentage, their own risk to reward, their own they have their own numbers, right? Because that's the only way to do it. And it's different per currency pair, so you can't. And I realize that this sounds difficult, but it's actually it's not. And the more difficult it sounds to your brain is because you're considering wanting to do multiple things, right? But I've got like 6 different approaches. Well, don't. If it's not, I can guarantee if right now you have 6 different approaches, none of them are going to be working for you long term because you haven't figured them out, right? Take one, master it, let it get you rich, and then figure everything else out. Right? Any objections? We'll see. All right. I'm just being honest, right? I mean, everybody wants to get rich quick. It's not going to happen. But let me get back to if you are planning, if your approach involves having multiple trades, so you know that, okay, I've back tested these things. This is about how many I'm going to get per day. So I know this long-term trade is going to be taking like 5 days. And in that time, I'm going to maybe take another 1 trade a day. So I'm going to take 5 additional trades. So at any given time, maybe I'll have 2 trades running. Therefore, whatever lot size I put in for this one is going to account for the fact that I'm going to be putting in another one here and another one the next day and so on and so forth. So you have to account for whatever trades you're taking has to account for the fact that you're going to be taking multiple. And if you didn't account for it, guess what you do?
No.
You don't. You don't do it. You don't do it. This is the perfect setup. This is exactly what I look for. But I've already got a trade, and I've already everything that I've planned to risk is in play. I don't get to take advantage of that, and that's okay. Roll on. Right? No pun intended, because I got a bike attached to my ass. I don't know if you guys noticed that. But so did I answer your question, Brian? Dude, I forgot it. Just behind you. So
You just said a sentence. You said if you have a 90% plus win rate, then it's slim to none. I just didn't hear something slim to none. What did you say there?
90% win rate, having concurrent losers, back-to-back concurrent losers, like having 5 back-to-back losers on a regular basis is like slim to none. With a 90% win rate, it's just not gonna happen. It's gonna be the exception, not the rule. So I'm not gonna base my whole trade strategy off of something that's gonna be the exception, right? My whole trade strategy is gonna be based on what's probably gonna happen, right? Probability. And not like 50-50. I want a high probability, 70, 80, 90%, right? Because 50-50 is you're better off just flipping a coin, because at least it's going to give you consistency. But if you know that we can't live in possibility, right? We can't dictate our trading and the way we approach the market based on possibility, because anything is possible. We have to base it on probability. What has happened, what's likely to continue to happen. Now, unfortunately, that's not the same with the way indicators are built. So our indicators are using real-time information. That's different. Most indicators are using that same concept, the law of large numbers, probability, based on what's happened historically, and that's why the average win rate for day traders in the whole world, millions of traders, is 50 to 55%. For professional day traders, right? Well, our organization, we're doing 70% in our sleep, right? And others similar, which there are only a small handful of them. And for those of you guys that know of them, right? Because I talk to you guys all the time. You guys, maybe spent. I know what was the guy we were talking to? Tim's my partner back there. Can't remember his name, but he spent like $30,000 for a 4-day seminar, right? Just for a 4-day, and there was no follow up. There's no videos afterwards. There's no finance, corporate funding. It's none of that. Here's what you learned. Give me your $30,000. Good luck to you.
Wow.
Right? They go for one-on-one coaching. You're talking about $50,000 to $250,000. That's the baseline. Baseline for one-on-one coaching. Much less 12 weeks of it. You guys got a gonga of a deal. You guys don't realize it. You're too spoiled to realize it. So was I. So I'm grateful for it. But so when we're looking at different approaches, we want to consider those facets: win rate, risk to reward, and risk percentage. Risk percentage is only relevant because the probability of concurrent losers. Probability is where we exist in just about every facet of our life, but especially in trading.
Just getting back to this question about if I have a trade-in now, what do I do? If it's part of your plan, you've already planned for it. But if you haven't, you have a trade-in and you see a trade you want to make, then you do it on the risk of your margin, not on your account.
Or just don't do it. But yeah, you can do it on the risk of your margin. It's a good call.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to be the annoying person.
No, not at all. I want questions.
I just want to make sure I understand this. So are you that risk percentage?
Mhm.
Are you basing that off of your account balance or your equity?
So that's kind of what he was alluding to.
Okay, yeah.
If you base it on your equity, that means you have an active trade. Can you count on that equity? No, because the trade can still go negative and lose. Now, if you're basing it on the free margin, that's a much safer way of doing it, because the free margin obviously accounts for like $600 extra, divergent in the negative from what your equity says, right? So, and I should have added this to this, so I'm glad you guys brought it up. Our balance, let's say, is $10,000. We press the button, and now we're in a trade, right? Our equity is $10,000 less our commission for that trade, less the spread, and whatever we're drawn down or in profit, right? That's our equity. Our free margin is the equity less, depending on what lot size you use, like $600, right? One lot is like $600 or $60 for a 0.1 or $6 for a 0.01, right? So here's the problem though, is if you base it on your free margin, even that number, whatever, so that's going to give you a good buffer, right? But that number is going to change if the current trade or trades lose, right? So if you, and this is where it gets complicated. You can say, okay, I'm going to base it on the free margin. Well, don't base it on the free margin. Base it on the free margin and the assumption that the trades that are in will all lose. And then whatever that number is, use 1% of that number. And you're going to be like, there's no point in even doing that. I'm just going to take the 1 or 2, but, and then there might be, that might work for you, But if you know that you're going to take multiple trades, then account for it with the first one. So if you're going to take 3 trades, then you're going to divide but again, your risk reward is probably going to be different unless they're all the same setup. They just happen really frequently. Like Troy, right? He's going to take 1 pip, but he's going to take 5 trades simultaneously. But he's going to take his lot size that he would normally use for 1 pip, so 5 lot for 1 pip. He's going to say, no, I'm going to take a 0.1 lot. 1 lot for 1 pip 5 times. So it's still 5 lots. The commission's still the same. Everything's still the same. It's just pushing the button 5 times at a 1 lot versus 1 time at a 5 lot. I'm replaying that in my head. Yep, we're good. Okay. Well, what other question? I thought I saw somebody else's hand shoot up. Okay. Yes.
Is there a way to do that? Recalculate so you can do the 2 trades, like go back a 0.5% risk?
So that's why we talk a lot about this, because I think people, when we first start, when we're lights, we get into the habit of pushing the button and figuring it out later. So the answer is no, right? Because we can't undo the trade and say, oh wait, actually I want to not put that lot size in, right? And as you push the button, it's too late, right? I mean, you could close by, but short of like giving you a tutorial on MetaTrader 4 and things like that, let's just begin with the end in mind, right? So when considering an approach that is within the time of day you are committed to trading, is within your risk appetite, so you're asking yourselves these questions, right? Is it am I available to trade at the same times as that person is trading them when it's most optimal, right? Or, when they appear, if it's all day, then great, right? You can pick whatever time works best for you. Is within your risk appetite. Now, risk appetite is different for different people. Somebody might be comfortable with a long-term trade because it's not so stressful as when the market's moving really fast, right? And another person might be more comfortable with a short-term trade because they don't want to sit in the market for as long. They're anxious when that happens, right? So we're all different. We're all individuals. We all have different risk appetite, different personality. Troy looked to me a lot when he first started trading. He trades completely different. Candace, my ex, when I taught her everything she knows exclusively, nobody else. She had no influence from any other coaches or anything else, not even videos. I taught her everything she knew exclusively. She trades completely different than I do. Tim got me started. He trained me when I first started. I trade completely different than he does. None of us are going to trade the same. So don't aspire to trade like a coach, maybe get the same or better results, right? Like aspire to have the same results or better results. Don't aspire to have the same results. Aspire to have better results, right? Let's have an evolution here. Let's get people that are getting better and better and better at this. So fits your approach as a pro day trader. Remember to ask yourself and the person presenting the information, has it been back tested? What is the win rate? What is the risk reward being used? What risk percentage is being applied? If the strategy appears to be mathematically and scientifically sound, back test it to see if and how it will work for you. So no one's going to be able to say, here you go, here's a trade setup, you're going to make $1 million. Nope, ain't going to happen. And if that's the way you guys have been trading right now, you're doing it wrong, and that's probably why you're not seeing an increase in your accounts, right? And for those of you guys that have figured some of these things out, you're seeing the increase in your account, right? So it's got to happen. If you don't, it's not like Hiram is saying this is Hiram's rule. Again, I'm referring to myself as the third person. This is not my rule. I didn't invent this. I'm just pointing it out. It's just the way math is. It's just what all professional day traders do to be professional, to make 6-7 figures in the market. These are the things that they do. It's not overnight. It takes a moment just to figure these things out. But once you start practicing them, you figure it out quickly. And once you've got it, it's done. It's not like learning a different nuance of the indicators. It's static, right? 2 + 2 is 4. It's just going to stay that way. You'll understand those concepts. But just in case, and to make things simple, this is the mastermind site. You can't have it unless you pay for it. If you go here to a calculator, but you can take this, and with a little bit of Excel knowledge, you can replicate this calculator. There's nothing special about it except for that. It doesn't exist anywhere else except for here. Account free margin, we always put that because we just want it to be as safe as possible. Now, if you only have one trade in, then you have your account free margin, your balance and equity are going to be all the same. Or if you have 0 trades in. As soon as you push the button, your account free margin is going to be different. If you've planned to take multiple trades, then you don't have to necessarily use the account free margin number. You can just use the balance or equity numbers, because that first trade you put in was at a smaller lot size because you knew you'd have another trade with another lot size. So it's like if it's all the same approach and you're going to use, let's say, a 1 lot or a 3 lot, but you're going to be putting in 3 of them, then that first trade is only going to get a 1 lot. That way when you put in the second trade, that gets a 1 lot, and then the third trade will have a 1 lot as well, which equals 3 lots, right? Okay. So let's say our account free margin is $2,000. Our win rate, somebody give me your win rate. 83. 83% win rate. Our risk percentage, it's going to tell us is 1% risk. And it's that number is just, it's not going to give you the range, it's just going to say 1%. So this is going to take the most conservative. Okay, what's our stop loss with 83%, with that 83% win rate? Doesn't matter what the number is. 20. 2012? 20. So once I put in those parameters, I press calculate, and it tells me the largest lot size I should be trading on that account, or on that, because that's a $2,000 account with 83% win rate. I'm risking 1% within 20 pips. So what is a 0.1 lot size? 20 pips. $20. What is $20 to 2,000? 1%. Do you have to know that for you to be able to read that? Nope. Makes it really simple, right? Okay. What's the minimum take profit in order for this to make sense mathematically and scientifically? 6.7. So if we had a 20 pip stop loss, we'd need at least 6.7 pips of profit. Otherwise, that trade's not going to work for you long term. If you have 7 pips, good. 8 pips, 9, anything greater than 6.7. With your lot size, anything at or less than that. So lot size is going to be, this is the most, and take profit, this is going to be the least. So that's it. And then you have, let's say you win that trade, right? And you were trading a 0.1 lot size and you won, let's just say 10 pips. Now, what is my account balance? Yep, 2010. And then do it all over again. Right? That didn't change much because it's using some pretty stiff buffers. I think it'll change it like 200. Yep. Now you add another 0.01 lot to your trade. Now let's say we're trading and we get to 2,653.46 because that's what the real number is going to look like, not 2,000. Right? I used to count just out of curiosity how many times I landed on a round number. I take this trade, the commission is this. If I don't have a swap, well, I might hit a round number today. That's cool. Nope. Something happens and it's just not a round number, right? Maybe I caught like a swap or something. But it's rare that your account is at a round number. So whatever the number is, all the way to the penny, put it in there. And then let's just say that we're at 69% win rate. That's just below 70. If I press this calculate button, it's going to say do not trade. So again, it's going to use very conservative numbers. So let's say 70% win rate. And let's say our stop loss is 50. Let's use a big stop loss. So this says that my lot size should be 30 cents a pip. So 0.03 lot size. And minimum take profit is 25 pips. So I have to take 25 pips at a 0.03 lot size in order to get before a 50 pip drawdown, which would yield me, this is a 0.5% risk and this is a 2-to-1, so I'd make 0.25% for 25 pips. That's it, 0.25%. So it's going to use really conservative numbers, but it is also going to do the math for you. Again, a quick Excel would do the same thing, but the reason why I'm using very strict numbers is because I don't know what you guys are doing. I just want to make sure that whatever information that I provide is going to be as effective as possible. So you'll notice that you can't type whatever you want under the risk percentage. It gives you a risk percentage based on your win rate. So if I do 82, it's going to say 1. If I say 90, it's going to say up to 4% risk, right? But never more than 5%.
Can't go less than 70.
Can't go less than 70. So in other words, if you're going to trade at a win rate that's less than 70, figure it out yourself. And if you did do something less than 70, then you want your risk percentage to be really low as well, right? Because concurrent losers. If you're at 40%, you know, as a matter of fact, that you're going to hit 6 back-to-back losers at some point, and then some, 8, 9, possibly even 10 back-to-back losers with a 40% win rate after you've taken enough of those trades, right? So 10 back-to-back losers at 1%, that's almost 10%. Again, it's not going to be 10% because every time you lose a trade, your lot size should be adjusted.
So in the calculator, if you put 100% win rate, come back, yeah, right.
Still risk percentage of 4. Yep. So you might have 100% win rate for a minute, but not for long. Still, nonetheless. So and I'm glad you brought that up, Brian, because here's the rule. What if you have a trade that somebody's like, this is gold, it works 99% of the time, it's awesome, you tried it a couple times in your demo account, maybe you tried it for like 6 months in your demo account, you always won that trade, right? And it's, let's just say, a 20 pip drawdown and a 10 pip take profit, 2-to-1, but you're killing it because it's like 99% accurate, right? And you say, you know what, I'm going to go into my live account with this. I haven't lost a trade yet. I'm probably not going to lose one on this trade. I have a $2,000 account balance. I'm going to put my lot size as large as I can make it, and I'm going to take this trade. Should that ever happen? No, because when you bet the farm, you only have to lose how many times to lose the farm? Once. So never bet the farm so that you don't lose the farm, right? This is a money farm. It really is. When you guys figure this stuff out, you guys start implementing these things, you're going to be like, holy cow, this can't be real. This can't be real. I was driving down the road one day, and I made $800 when I was first started. Money, real money. And I'm texting, my partner, and and my daughter's, I'm dropping her off at school, and she's like, do you want to kill me? Listen, I just made $800. Oh, really? Keep going. Yeah, that's right. Right? I'll tap you if you're going to hit something while you're driving. Big mistake. Don't trade and drive. Don't text and drive. Right? But, I was excited. Right? Anyway, I'm texting Tim like, dude, I just made $800. He's like, all right, calm down. Just, slow down. It's just $800. I'm like, yeah, but that's like, it's a big deal for me. I was like, it can't be this stinking simple. And it really is. The problem is we overcomplicate it. It is simple. It's simple to win. It's hard to keep those winnings. But there's a way to do it, and it's mathematical and scientific. It doesn't mean that you have to have some type of creative brain. You don't have to be good at math. You don't have to be good at anything. All you have to do is know how to figure out your risk reward, right? Figure out how to backtest, because that'll give you your win rate. Make sure that that's going to make sense mathematically. And if you're not sure, literally use 10 trades as the example, right? You go back and you backtest, you realize, yeah, I can win that trade 75% of the time. So if I had, and that's with a 26 pip stop loss and a 7 pip take profit, right? Okay, if I won 7 of those trades out of 10 for 7 pips, right? It's 49, whatever that is, and I lose 3 of those at 26 stop loss, do I make profit? No. So I'm not doing that, right? It's not like this complicated thing. You can really just break it down into, once you've got your number, break it down into just an example of 10. Build an Excel spreadsheet, use the calculator, whatever. Once you have that number and you know that it's mathematical and scientific, which is why we go back so far, law of large numbers, and from January 2015 to current, you can see that just about any market condition that existed within the market appears within that time, right? So a steady, strong movement up, strong movements down, small trends, big trends, soft and up trends, soft and down trends, consolidation, choppy trading, everything, right? Is my trade setup going to work here, 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 all the market conditions? Yep, all right. And I have enough data that it uses the law of large numbers so that I have a representation of what it's going to look like long term. Okay, analyze that. What's my output? Awesome. Execute. Rinse and repeat. Get something else. Start working on that while you're making money with this thing, right? Because what are we going to do? Learn one thing. Let it get us rich. Let it get us. If you don't want to be rich, fine. Let it get you your whatever you're looking for. Let it get you that. Replace your income, supplement your income, pad your retirement, whatever, right? And then while that's happening, right? While you're trading on that in the live market, you go and take something else. You run it through the same process, self-sufficiency, right? And now you're not saying, oh, well, this person said this is a good trade. Well, no. This person said that's a good trade. No, it's like, who cares what any of us say whether or not it's a good trade? It doesn't mean it's a good trade for you. It's a good trade for me. It's a good trade for other people. We want to provide variety because not everyone's the same. So I've got like 30 different patterns. Pick one. Pick one. Just one. And then go to the Euro US, test it. And when you've got your finding, trade it. And then go to the USDJPY with the same setup, right? Test it. Get your findings, trade it. So on and so forth and so on. But while you're testing that second one, same pattern, same setup, you're trading the first one you tested. And you're making profit, right? And then you can literally break down per day, per trade, per net pip per day, per net pip percentage of growth per day, how long it's going to take you to reach your goal. And when you get to that number, you're like, it's not fast enough. I need to add another one, right? or whatever the case may be. Instead of right now, it's like, the on it said to take 20 pips, so I'm just going to bet the farm, and I'm not going to use a stop loss because the market always returns. Good luck with that, right? So we don't want to do that. Let's become professional day traders. I'm going to show an example of how we'd backtest. Were there any other questions before I move on?
Well, I just wanted to say, you said earlier when you were talking, when you said this is mathematical, this is scientific, because I kind of get confused on what exactly is the mathematical part, what exactly is the, you said two words, you didn't, I mean, you did say a lot tonight, you said like 100 things.
Yeah.
You put it into just two things?
Yeah.
What were
So they're kind of symbiont, right? Because they work cohesively together. But if you go back to January 2015 to current, matter of fact, Troy's got a really cool way of doing this. He goes back 15 April to August. So April 1st. August, yeah, 4 months. April 1st to August, the end of August, the last trade day of August, 2015. April to August, 16, 17, and 18. So just those, and he was able to capture, he's just showing this the other day, all those market conditions that we're looking for. That makes it scientific, right?
So backtesting is scientific part.
Backtesting a certain type of market condition, all market conditions for your setup makes it scientific. Right, and you've got enough data, so the amount of data, again, they work symbiontly. So the law of large numbers, which is more mathematical, but it's like scientific math, right? It's like, okay, the law of large numbers implores science and math, but the reason why we go back to 2015 is scientific, because you want to make sure that your finding is viable. So when you're doing something scientifically, you can't just see a few examples of it and say, yep, that's legit, right? I won this trade 5 times last week. I have 100% win rate. I'm going to jack up my lot size. I'm going to go for broke on this sucker. That's hardly scientific.
So should we go from, say, 2015 to present?
Go to the end of 2018,
Okay.
and then you get your data, figure out what your number is, and then test it January, February, March, all the way to current in 2019 with your finding. Because the first thing you're going to do is figure out what your number is, right? What's my stop loss? What's my take profit? What's my risk to reward? Okay, now I've got that. Now, if I'd have done that, if I would have started this January 1, 2019, would that have been profitable? Right? So that becomes the testing phase there in 2019. Now, as you continue to keep track of the information, you'll want to look at it and reanalyze it every quarter.
So my testing is in my demo account.
No, you're not even trading it. You can't go back historically and trade it. You just go look for it. Let me show you an example. So let's use the classic, for example. So I'm going to go to, that's 2013. And how many of you guys trade, let's say how many are available to trade at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time? Most of you guys, we'll use that number. Now 7 p.m. Mountain Standard is going to be 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1300 UTC, right? So we're going to go to 2015, and we're just going to look at 1300 UTC.
That's 7, 8.
Where did I go? What are we at? 7 p.m. Oh, sorry, because I was counting from 7. So, yeah, 7 p.m. would be 3 a.m. Yeah, sorry. I was going 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, okay. So 3 a.m. So 0300 UTC. Okay. So still in 2014. Okay. Come on. Okay, here we go. So 5-2 was the first, or 1-2 was the first trade day in 2015. So now I'm going to go to 0300.
That's UTC?
This is UTC.
Universal time.
Yep. So, what is UTC? Yeah, it's universal time.
Oh, okay.
So there's the 0300 hour. Do we have classic? Do we have major, minor, previously overbought, crossed down? There's 3 possible answers. There's
Yes, no, maybe.
right. So which one equals yes?
The majors,
Okay. Is this a yes, a no, or a maybe?
Maybe.
If it's a maybe, it's a what?
No.
Okay. So there's a yes, there's a maybe and a maybe and a no are the same, so they're no. So is this a yes or a no? No, because if it's a maybe, which it is, it's a no. Okay. Now we're speaking the same language. I love it. Okay. So 0300 next. We don't mark anything down there. So go to the next day to 0300. How about there? That's a classic, right? Let's go back. Our major or minor crossed down there. Our major and minor overbought. Is green pressure on bottom? Is green pressure still on bottom? Are both crossed down? This is a classic. Okay. So let's say we're going to back test this for just that time.
You mark the day.
I'm marking where it happened.
Give it a line.
Yeah, I just drew in a line where this candle ended and the actual candle, so vertical and horizontal to make a crosshair. Okay. Now, if I go forward here, I can see what happened, right? I'm going to stretch this out. Usually I use two charts, one stretched out and they're linked, but let's just clean this chart up. So I want to see what the market did in this time. And there's certain parameters. I wasn't planning on showing you guys, teaching you guys this stuff because it takes a couple times to kind of figure this out. But I'm going to hit you with it and you guys can do with it whatever you want. So I would recommend paying attention. Or just give me the pen. Okay, thank you. All right. So I want to see, I was expecting sell, and it didn't happen immediately. So this is called what? Drawdown. And it drew down 24.5 pips. And it took 3 hours to draw down, actually 4 hours to draw down to 24.5 pips and then come back to break even. It took 4 hours to do those things. Draw down and come back to break even. Okay? Now, I don't ever want it to draw down more than 50 pips. So if it drew down 50 pips, I would stop counting. I would say that's probably the most that we got into profit, if anything. So that would be like 1 pip or 0. And then we went 50 pips negative. And that's how I would record it. I wouldn't try to continue to record it after 50 pips. First of all, because I think that if you can't get your trade within 20 or 30 pips, then you're probably doing it wrong, especially with these indicators. But if you like a longer term approach, you kind of need that 50 just because you're using a longer term chart. Cool. Have the 50. After 50, it's like, dude, you should probably think about doing something different. That's just a lot of pips to go negative in the market, you know, to plan to go negative in the market on a regular basis. 50 pips. Because, again, your lot size is going to be small relative to your account, I guess. Okay, so now we took 4 hours from when we entered to draw down and come back to break even. Now, from break even to profit, or what we call post-trade movement, is, let's just say it moved 20.4 pips, or sorry, not 20.4. It moved 22.4 pips in 1 hour. So the way we record that then is right here under drawdown, we went 24 pips drawn down. Our duration for drawdown, how long did it take us to draw down and get back to break even? 4 candles, right, or 4 hours. And then how much did we move after we came to break even to post-trade movement, to profit? 20, right, 20 point, and you want to use the decimals, so, or the micro pips, but 20.4. And it took how long from when we came back to break even to our peak profit? 1 candle. So if I have a duration right here that says 4 and a post-trade movement duration that says 1, then I know that total trade time is 5. It took me 5 candles. But I also know that I spent 4 of those candles upside down. So I could go back and say, all right, this data looks good, but I can also look at it and say, I don't want to be in a trade longer than X amount of hours, or my risk, my probability of success decreases. So what was Troy talking about? Sometimes he closes based on time, right? Well, there's a way to do that scientifically, mathematically. At first, again, just try to collect the data, figure out where you're at, use the general parameters, get used to it, and then you can start honing in your skills. You're not going to become a master of this overnight, right? The first thing we want to do is just make you profitable. Let's do that first. So pick something simple, classic.
We
It don't matter what
call
it is.
We don't call that a win or a loss, we're just taking data.
It's neither, right?
So we're just taking data.
Right, because what if later we come back and we say with a 30 pip stop loss and a 50 pip take profit, we can make, 60% of the time, right? Or 70% of the time. Well, if we didn't count this one, we may have missed out on that, right? So right now we're not saying did it win or lose, we're saying what did the market do when our setup was present at that time on that currency pair. And you see how the law of large numbers, having a whole bunch of those, will give us a decisive number that works mathematically and scientifically. Our risk to reward, our risk percentage based on our win rate. You guys follow me? The easier way to do it, which how many have experienced that generally when it's easier, it's not as valuable as when it's harder? Okay, well maybe it's just me. Holy shit. Usually when things are harder, they're worth more for me. For me, I'll say for me because nobody else. Either that or cat got your tongue or something. You guys falling asleep on me? Do I need to like pop wheelies up here or something? Somebody suggested smoke, right? Maybe some fireworks. Like cow. All right. So the other thing you can do is this is my entry. Now, did it go? Now I can make a presumption, right? I can presume that it's going to do something. Well, I want to try to get 80%. Well, no kidding. You're probably going to say I want to try to get 99%. But you'll say, okay, can I get a 5 pip take profit within a 10 pip stop loss? Right? Okay, so you go forward. Well, on that one, no, right? Because we didn't go 5 pips down before we went 10 pips up. So winner, loser, and that gets a check mark, right? And then do another one. So go and find another one, and then it gets a check mark. Winner, loser, right? So at the end of this, let's say you've got 50 winners out of 80 trades, right? So 50 winners out of 80 trades means that I have 30 losers. What is the percentage on that? 60-something percent? Let's call it 65, because 60-something sounds like 65. 65%. So if we have 65% and we have, we said 1-to-1, right? So we're saying I want to see if I can get a 5 pip take or a 2-to-1. We said I want to try to get a 5 pip take profit within a 10 pip stop loss, right? Okay, this is all I have. I'm rookie at this. I don't know what I'm doing yet. All I know is that I tried to get a 5 pip take profit within a 10 pip or 10 pip stop loss, and I was able to do that 65% of the time. Okay, so if I know that I won 50 of those trades and I lost 30 of them, then let's just take this number right here and say I won 65%, right? So if I only took 10 trades and I won 65%, how many trades did I win? 6.5. And how many pips was I going for profit?
5.
All right. Anybody have a calculator? What's that number? It's like 33, 32 and a half, 33. Okay. So 33. And if you have a calculator on your computer, do it there or whatever. Write it on a piece of paper. It don't matter. Now, how many losers do I have? What is it?
3.5.
This is not like this is not an auction, right? 45, 35, get 40, sold, right? No, there's only one answer, right? It's 3.5. There's a lot of wrong answers, right? Infinite numbers of them. All right. So if I won 6.5, then I lost 3.5 of those trades. How much was I risking per trade? 10, right? So what is my number here? 35. And what did we say our number was here? 33. Which one's bigger? Our loss. Did that work? Okay, so we know we have a 65% win rate, and whatever we came up with just doesn't work. Do we have to know that it's this risk or this reward? No, we just know 65% for what I was looking for does not work, right? So then what do I got to do? I got to go back to all those 80 trades again and check them again. But if I do it this other way, it seems longer, but I only have to do it once, and then I have mountains of data that I can play with for days and figure out different parameters. You know, I could probably find 5 or 6 different setups in that mess, right? Especially if I'm keeping track of things like the time that they happen, the amount of time that they were in, so on and so forth and so on, right? Then I can take that information and look at it 5 ways from Sunday and figure out which of those is going to make me the most profit, and then do just that, right? So I'm going to do that now. Let's say that we won 80% of the time, and we know that we can do a 5 pip take profit and a 10 pip stop loss. That's easy, right? 8 times 5, 40. 5, 40. 2 times 10 is 20. 20 pips. Yep, I can win that, right? I backtested enough. I know that it's scientific. I know it's mathematic. I know I can win that. So now I'm going into the market, and I'm trading based on 80% win rate, and I'm going to go for a 5 pip take profit and a 10 pip stop loss. And with that, I know I'm going to use 1% of my account. So whatever my account balance is, that's what's going to tell me what my lot size is, right? And I've already decided it's 1%. So the only thing that's going to be fluid in that is my account balance. What's my new 1%? So the only thing I'm doing in my account now is the thing that I backtested for, and I don't have to think about all those numbers ever again, except for what is 1% of this, right? And do I see my setup? Not, okay, I see my setup, and back in 2015 of April, you know, these, it don't matter. Here's my setup. After I backtested, I know I can go 5 pip take profit, 10 pip stop loss for this time on this currency pair. There it is on the currency pair on the time. So I know I'm going to push the buy button, and I'm going to set a 5 pip take profit, or a 5 pip take profit, 10 pip stop loss, right? So the only number that's going to change in that whole parameter, in that whole sequence, is my lot size. And the only way that's going to change up or down is based on my account balance, right? So it's always going to be 1% of this. It's always going to be the same setup. It's always going to be the same stop loss and take profit for that currency pair after you've done the work, right? So now you're trading that. Then you take something else and you start backtesting that and figuring out what that is. Yes.
You're gonna run this through your demo before you put it in your live.
Why? You just, by the time you get from 2015 to current.
That you're hitting the right buttons at the right time, and you've got clear in your head.
Oh, so you're talking about executing on MetaTrader 4. Yeah, I mean, place demo trades.
Learning how to execute it and making sure it comes out on the MetaTrader before you actually go to a live account.
I'm going to leave that to your, so here's what I would say. By the time you get done with all that back testing, you should be proficient with 3 things.
Yeah.
How to identify your trade setup, when to take your trade setup, and how to take your trade setup. So the how is a little more complicated, right? Because it's not just push the buy button, push the sell button, set your stop loss and take profit. It's, yes, those things, but it's also what is my stop loss and take profit. So the how is answered by what? Back testing. We back test and we know the how. So if we know that, and we've been putting in trades and other stuff, we know how to push the buy sell button, we know how to set a stop loss and take profit, then when our back testing is done, we go live with that sucker. Otherwise, why go through all the effort? It takes people sometimes a couple months to back test that much information. If you're going to go through all that effort, when you're done with it, you need to be confident in the process. If you're not, I don't know what to tell you. I guess some people are just more confident shooting in the dark, right? But do you understand how that's going to work mathematically, scientifically? Those foundations are not just something that we pulled out of our tail. This is how professional day traders do it. And it doesn't matter what they're doing. It doesn't matter if they're trading price action or EMAs, RSIs, all that other garbage out there. It doesn't matter. They're making profit. The only difference is we can get there faster because our indicators are consistent, right? They're faster to react. We're not trading at a 50 to 55% win rate. We're trading at 70, 80, 90 plus percent. Troy was showing you trade setups that he was like 100% on. I traded at 96% with the correct risk to reward ratio, right? With a small 1-to-1 or less. And I'm hedging and price averaging to boot. So you can see how that would equal something much larger, right? But at first, I didn't know a lot of things. All I knew was the classic, the double cross. And I realized, well, actually, if this green line is on bottom and pressure, that does a little bit better. And then I didn't always win them. So I'm like, okay, how do I figure out how I can still make profit even though I'm going to lose these? Well, I went to hedging and price averaging. I didn't even use stop losses, and I figured out I needed to get good at that. So I practiced that. And there's a whole way of practicing that. We're not talking about exit method today. We're talking about money management. But can you see the whole honeypot here? If you figure this out, you're going to be self-sufficient, right? And you can take your Teflon. You can take anything that anybody gives you, run it through your process, get an output, and execute on it, right? Now it's no longer a guess. Well, how much do I trust this coach? Because last time, or this is a new coach, and so I'm going to trust him this time. Don't trust anything any of us say, because we're not saying it in that way. We're not saying you should go and do this when we're giving you a trade setup. We're saying you should go and back test it. See if it's right for you. Does it fit your risk appetite, your personality, your trade strategy? And then if it does, then back test it. Are you, for the times that you trade, the currency pairs that you trade, some people won't trade the GBP JPY. It's the weirdest thing to me. They call it the Widowmaker, and they're all scared of it, right? I'm like, dude, that's just quick money. That's what that says to me. GBP JPY is like pay Hiram fast. That's what that says.
It was invented for you.
It was invented for me. Just for me, right? Because I was forged by the Forex market and the trade, all that stuff, right? Anyway, but so
Hiram's a unicorn. We don't know where he came from.
I just appeared. Right.
Preceded by gold dust.
Yeah, preceded by gold. Gosh.
In fact, he is gold.
That's right. That's kind of the.
Trade gold now. It's Hiram.
Anyway, so if we want to remain credible, let's not succumb to that garbage, right? Okay, so the fact remains, if you can break it down to a scientific and mathematical understanding, and then execute, then it's rinse and repeat from there. It doesn't matter what the approach is after that. You know how to test it to see if it works for you and how it works for you. And once you've done that, execute. Rinse, repeat. Rinse, repeat. If you do that one time, just once, and you do it correctly, that will get you wherever you want to be in whatever your goals are, right? If it's to get rich, fine, to get rich. I don't know why everybody has such a hang up about money. Oh, rich, all right? All of a sudden, everyone gets all tense like, well, that's not what I'm here for. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And you're doing it the right way. You're not trying to get rich quick. Otherwise, you go scratch lottery tickets. Maybe you do. I've done it, right? Maybe you do. But that's not going to be the way. You put in the work here, right? And you do it the right way, and it's going to last. You're going to be able to keep it. You're going to figure out a lot of things in that process. Perseverance, dedication, right? Commitment.
Math.
Not even math. I made a calculator, bro. You don't even have to do math.
Hiram, math. Please,
Math, right? You don't have to master math.
No.
Just the simple things. Yeah, you need math, but you don't have to be a mathematician.
Yeah, so you said, sorry for all the questions.
No, I appreciate them.
You said the back testing is basically, that's the brunt of the scientific element.
Mm-hmm.
And the math part, why do you
That's the risk to reward.
That's okay.
So the risk to reward says scientifically I haven't. So the back testing says scientifically I have enough data to support my finding. Right? It's not just one trade that I won. Now I think that I can win 100% win rate. It's a whole bunch based on every market condition. That's what makes it scientific. Right? So now it's a scientific finding. Now I apply the math ratio to see if it's going to make profit. Scientifically, I can get a 5 pip take profit within a 15 pip stop loss 60% of the time. Risk to reward ratio, does that make sense so that I make profit? No, right? Because I could easily say, again, if I know I won 60%, I can just use how many trades are we going to use as an example? 10. Why? Because it's a round number and it's easy to work with. Do I need to if I back tested 5,643 examples, do I need to use that number? No, I can just say I won 60% of those trades. If I took 10 trades and I won 60%, how many of those trades did I win? 6. What's my take profit? 5, right? Okay. So, look, you don't even have to write it down. I got a calculator in here somewhere. I'm going to write it down. You take out your calculator. 6, and I took 5 pips per trade. So I won 6 of those trades, 5 pips each. That equals 30, right? How many did I lose? 4. What did I use? If I used a 5 and I set a 15 pip stop loss. So this number right here would be 15, right? Okay. So does that work? No, I lost money. So back to the drawing board. Or I just see what the market would do, and then there's a different way to do it, right? So the simplest way is just to go and have the theory in your head, and then go and try to see if you can get it within that scientific stretch of time. We call that the proving ground, because you want to prove out your right. See the words there again? Okay, good. So once you've done that, then you have your win percentage. How many times can I win in the times that I trade for the currency pair that I'm looking at for this setup from January 2015 to current? How many times versus the times that I lose? Okay, I've got 60% of the time I'm going to win that trade with those parameters. But it's not enough, because the math part comes in. Risk to reward. If I win that 60% of the time, but it's a 3-to-1, it's not going to make me profit, so I can't use it. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question? So that's the math part, is we bring in that risk to reward and we say, okay, we have the scientific finding, let's bring in the math, and if they both work, we have a match, right? I have an 80% win rate, and I can do that with a 10 pip take profit and a 10 pip stop loss. Does that work?
Yes.
Of course. That's simple, right? 8 times I win 10 pips, 2 times I lose 10 pips, I win. The 2 times that I lose, you know what we call that? The cost of doing business. Because that's the only thing I can guarantee you. Anybody in any organization, and any trading organization ever in the history of day traders, retail day traders, can only guarantee you one thing, and that is you will lose trades. It doesn't mean that you have to lose money, right? Capital, profit. It doesn't mean you have to lose those things, but you will lose money. You will lose trades, right? The idea is to make money. So that's the cost of doing business. So if you have a grocery store, do you think they're going to shut down their grocery store because somebody dropped a gallon of milk on aisle 3? No, they expect that that's going to happen, right? And the more it happens, and the more the milk, goes up, or they stop letting the guy drop milk on aisle 3, or they start making, whatever, right? They put warnings or whatever, right? They account for those things that are going to happen. They know that they're going to have a certain level of loss, and they account for that when they say the milk is $300 or $3.50.
Are you speaking from experience?
We're dropping milk all the time, man. Go to the grocery store, you put milk on I put it on my lap because it's kind of hard to do a basket and roll like this, and then somebody cuts in front of me, I got to stop, and then the milk, and then I just roll off like it never happened usually. I kind of tell myself that it's job security for somebody, and usually they can find me because I run through the milk, and you just got to follow the trail. I'm just kidding. Or am I? I don't know.
You set yourself up for that one.
I know.
I got to tease. That's what I do. Sorry.
Absolutely. All right, so I've gone like 12 minutes over, but I want to make sure I have all the questions answered. Anybody else have any questions? Okay, quick recap. If I have a trade setup, let's say I'm going to show you the flat top, and you guys might not know the flat top, so I'm going to show you the flat top. And I say, here's the flat top, and when the thick orange is on top and it's flat, the value is 0, major minor overbought, you should sell, and we'll just use a base of 3 pips. What question should you ask me? What's your win rate? What's the next question? All right, my win rate is, I can hit this trade like 90% of the time.
What's the
What's my risk reward? I'm taking a 3 pip stop loss, or a 3 pip take profit and 15 pip stop loss.
What's your risk percentage?
Okay, am I good so far?
Yeah.
You have to ask yourself, does that make sense so far? How do you figure it out? 3 pip take profit, 10 trades, right? So I won 9 of them. 9 times 3 is 27. I lost 1 of them times 15. It's a profit of 12. Okay, we're good. What's your risk percentage? Okay, I'm going to do 2% on this trade. 2% risk. So on a $10,000 account, I've got 2%, which is $200, and that's going to be within 15 pips. So I'm going to use what is that, a point 0.25 would be $2.50
Now you
for
need your
12.
calculator.
I know, right? I know, I'm trying to do it in my head. Yeah, that would be too much. So it'd be like a point. Now I need a calculator.
It's like 1.2
1.2.
roughly.
A 1.2?
10 times 15 is 150. That's 0.2.
Oh, you got it. Yeah, you got it. That's right, because we're doing 15 pip stop. Okay, so 1.2 or 1.3, 1.33, right? As far back as those threes can go in what's allowed in CCM or CoinEx or MetaTrader 4, and so all that now makes sense, right? Okay, you're like, I like that. It's 90%. It's a quick trade. Some people are like, nah, I don't like those quick trades. They kind of freak me out. So right there, you can say, nope, not for me. Or you can say, yeah, I like that, quick, and it's only 15, and he's only risking 2%. Does that mean you can go and do that?
If you back test
If you back test it, right? Because what if when I'm trading is not the time you're trading? Or I'm doing it on the Euro USD, but you trade the USD JPY. Or I'm doing it on a 60-minute chart, and you're trading a 30-minute chart. So how do you figure it out? You get the parameters, you back test it. But right now, at that point that, okay, it's good, right? And I actually had a guy that ran the flat top 100% of the time. It came out to 92%. 92% accurate. And we still have people that just can't win for losing on those. And it could just very well be that the times that they trade it, it loses. Right? Because you're not going to trade it 100% of the time. What did we talk about in the beginning? You're not up at 2, 3 a.m. Some of you guys are. But if you're not committed to trading that time 90% of the time when your setup is present, then don't test for that time. You commit to these times to trade every day, Sunday through Friday, if that's what you set out for, or Monday through Friday. If you're not going to do it on Sunday, by the way, what are you not going to back test for? Right. If you're not going to do it on Friday, what are you not going to back test for? Friday. You guys understand how this works? You form fit it to you. How does that flat top work for me, for you, right? Everyone's going to be different. But here's the great part, is as you go back and back test that, you're going to start understanding nuances of the TNTs that you never understood before, and it's almost impossible to teach. You just have to experience them. You're going to back test something like dirty pressure, and you're going to start noticing crazy nuances of pressure indicator, where you're going to flip the script real quick. The pressure indicator is our fastest to react, or our fastest indicator. Our fastest predictive indicator, which makes it the fastest indicator that we have. You guys have all heard different. Because you know how complicated it is to teach that? It's easier just to say, when these lines point up, buy. Right? When these lines point down, sell. Instead of saying, well, when green is on bottom and they're negatively converging, and then we've got a short-term bias to the long side, and major and minor are oversold, and now they're starting to point up, and you got 3 out of 4 illogical on the TNTs, then you should probably consider positioning with a 5-minute and then take your long. Anybody keep up with that? It's okay if you didn't, right? Start over, right? Yeah, there's a recording. I'm being sarcastic, right? So it's easier to just say, look, when these lines point up, buy. So if I want to show you how all those things work together in concert, then I'll have you back test a pattern that I've created, right? Or another pattern somebody else has come up with, right? So flat top, I want you to learn the nuances of TNTs. Dirty pressure, I want you to learn the nuances of the pressure indicator. Clean pressure, I want you to learn the nuances of pressure and of support and resistance by way of pressure in combination.